Okay, so we've just had the referee information session for coaches. Euan and Sam are going to provide a snapshot, which will be available to all coaches on a recording, and just on some sort of real key highlights, really. So, Euan, you're looking at foil, and to provide your top tips, top highlights.
Absolutely, yeah. So probably approaching this in three different ways. So firstly, I talk about conventions. So unfortunately, as referees, we like to move the goalposts. Conventions change. Right of way isn't static; it's dynamic. If we compare fencing 2024 to fencing in the 1980s, obviously it's changed night and day. But also, even if we look a little bit closer to home, maybe in the last Olympic cycle, or even since maybe I don't know 2020, 2016, the meta or sort of the in-style forms have changed slightly as well. And one of the things that has really changed is attack and preparation. So in the middle nowadays, we don't really give too many togethers. So maybe if we cast our mind back to maybe 2012, we would see a lot more simultaneouses or a lot more, similar actions in the middle. Now we pretty much split everything, and this is pretty much the same in Sabre as well. You don't really give too many togethers. And we really like to reward whoever commits first. And when I say whoever commits first, it's whoever's almost risking being parried, who wants to touch more, who's being more decisive, who is the indecisive fencer as well. So if you are the coach and you're coaching a fencer, the really important thing is that your fencer has a plan in mind as well, and they're mentally reset. They've got that real clarity of thought to actually decide what they want to do. If they're going to go for a parapost, then go for that parapost. So if they're going to go for the attack, then go for the attack. What we can't do is allow our fencers to be thinking about previous touches or maybe a dodgy call that was given previously. And then because they're thinking about previous touches, that's when they get hit on preparation. So it's really important to have a plan. And it's really also important to make sure you're not just committing with a hand. So both the hand and the feet as well, and really deciding to attack. Another convention as well is reprise in the middle. So after both fencers come in and stop, one fencer will then restart and the other fencer will be too late. So we want to make sure that our fencer is that first fencer to restart after both fencers stop. And what we predominantly look for as referees is both hand and the feet, but also predominantly the feet. So if both fences stop, make sure that your fencer is the one that restarts. Because what we do see a lot of is one fencer goes, yeah, but they stopped. And you go, yep, 100% agree. But also, you were too late. So it's really, really important that you commit with both the hand and the feet. But also, after you've both stopped, you are the first fencer, or your fencer that you're coaching is the first one to restart. And we would give it reprise and the other person being too late. Another convention, or one thing that just needs to be clarified, is point in line. Now, as referees, we interpret this as anything more than a step lunge. So if, for example, someone's marching down the end of the piece and fencer sticks out point in line, and the other fencer who's marching down the end of the piece does step lunge, that is a point in line. If, for example, one person marching down the piece, point is established, and then straight away the other person goes step forward lunge, that is given step forward lunge and not point in line. So it's really important that you are able to disengage, but you're not allowed to deviate from the target. One thing we see a lot is point in lines going all over the place, deviating from the target. As soon as it leaves the target, that's no longer point in line. And importantly, you can have it both forwards and backwards, and you can have line off target as well. So say, for example, someone's coming forwards and they put their arm in the way as they finish, that could be point in line off target on the arm as well. Okay. Second point, playing to the referee. So we've all been in fencing situations where a referee may have given a call that you disagree with. Unfortunately, referees do make mistakes as much as we don't want to. Now, the really important thing is to distinguish whether the referee responds well to dialogue. If they do, then great. You can say, was it X or was it Y? Did I not commit enough with my hand? Was I a little bit too late? Was I too high up on the blade, for example? These are all really good examples of open-ended questions, which don't just, get the referee to say, no, you didn't do that. Yeah, was it X or Y? Because it opens up discussion. It's more of an open-ended question. And then also in the back of the referee's mind is they've already started that dialogue with you and they're almost expecting the fencer to adapt as well. So after that's happened, you accept the explanation of what the referee's given you, you reset and you adapt. And that links back to what we were saying earlier about having that real clarity of thought. If, for example, the referee doesn't respond well to dialogue and they shut it down straight away, there are some referees that just don't want to have anything to do with the fences. They don't want to have a conversation at all. They might even be a bit annoyed. If the fencer, tries to discuss it, not worth it, not worth, annoying the referee potentially because then you could be, penalized for it later. But it's really important to maybe break up the hit a little bit. So, straighten your sword, maybe not push it too much with a shoelace tie, but make sure you accept the explanation, reset and adapt. So that's really important, regardless of whether the referee responds well to dialogue, is that you accept the explanation, you reset, and then you adapt and you're ready for the next touch. So you can have that clarity of thought and you can decide what you want to do. And the final thing that I was going to discuss was knowing the rules. So as coaches and as fencers, it's really, really important to know the rules. Now, I know that's not a hot take. I know that's not revolutionary. I know, but you'd be surprised at the amount of fencers that do not know the rules. Same with coaches as well. So as a bare minimum, I wouldn't recommend reading from top to bottom of the rules. I've only read it once before my FIE exam. It's not a riveting read, but the bare minimum you can do is read T170. So T170 is the table of offences. So it shows you which card is which color, which offence is whatever what card as well. So, for example, use of the non-sword arm. People might think that's a yellow card. It's actually a straight red card. So it's really important to know these because it could be the difference between a yellow card and a red card. That card could be the difference between a 15-14 going one way or the other. So as a bare minimum, please learn the rules. So those are my 3 tips. So apply the convention. We're not fencing like we were in the 1980s. We're not fencing like we were in 2012. Fencing has changed. So really stay on top of conventions, attack and preparation, reprises, point in lines. Play to a referee. So manage the emotion of the referee. Don't annoy them, but also take your time, have that clarity of thought, and also know the rules. So those are my 3 top tips.
Thank you. And so something coaches could do, but could almost mimic being a referee, make some calls, and then see how the athlete responds to those calls. And that could be an education piece as part of the coaching in about this is what you would need to do and almost recreate those stressful situations and those calls.
Absolutely. And what you can even take that, a little bit further in, you could do constraints-led coaching, right? You can say, one of these calls you can cancel out as if it's in a competition, as if a referee's given an absolute howler that you disagree with. That could be a really good training piece to be like, hang on a second here, right? That hit was cancelled. Now I need to think about a way of adapting and changing. So you can always introduce these sort of stimuli into the way that you fence as well.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Sam, from a Sabre perspective.
Well, I'm gutted to go second because Euan has done it so eloquently, so I'll just look like a plum. But I mean, there is quite a lot of overlap genuinely between our 2 presentations. I think one of the fundamental points which I tried to put across was that a dissonance I see between coaching and refereeing is that coaches coach one fencer and referees referee 2. And so a lot of what I was discussing tonight with colleagues was the thinking of fencing as a dialogue between 2 athletes and not the monologue of one athlete, where if darling athlete X does action Y, must be because they've done the action. We talked about convention as well, and in Sabre, people consider it a kind of mystic art. And it's really not. And so what I tried to get across was that there are only 3 plausible options for refereeing the Sabre middle, which is the simultaneous action, the attack into preparation, and attack and counterattack. As Euan said, simultaneous actions are given very rarely in Sabre. I average 2 per season. So we really only have 2 things to worry about: the attack and counter-attack and the attack on preparation. I went into a bit of detail about what these things are, about, again, as Euan has said, the attack being with the hand and feet. This is critically important. You can't have 2 for 1. You can't just, have your feet and claim this. And also to say that, again, thinking about how actions relate, there is no, this is an attack on preparation, step lunge. It doesn't exist. Actions are relative. You can only be given an attack on preparation if you attack preparation. So it's really important to, as a kind of philosophy to understand that it's not what you do that's important, it's what you do when. And the when is absolutely critical because there are two fences on the piste and both have the right to hit each other. Unfortunately, for the one of the fences, but it's really important to remember. In terms of refereeing it, again, it's possible to narrow these things down to preparations and attacks and when those things happen. Talking again to repeat some of what Euan said, I mean, this is quite crystal clear. The higher up the food chain we go in refereeing, there is a clear understanding of this. I always quote Yoda, who says very wisely, "Do or do not. There is no try." We shouldn't be hearing, "Oh well, it was nearly attack on preparation," or it was almost. If this doesn't exist, either you hit on the preparation or you didn't. Now, the extent to which referees have an understanding of that, the consistency of that, is of course variable, but as really important fundamental terms, it's important to remember these things. We also spoke about this idea of implementing the penalties and the extent to which we implement them exactly as the rules say, or do we have an understanding of the rules and we consider how strictly we will apply them? The example always being, if fencers start before fence, do we punish them immediately or not? And the answer is it depends. Depends on what the DT tell us. It depends on the noise level in the room, and it can depend on other factors as well, and the extent to which referees should be aware of that and be cognizant and sensitive to that as well. So I think in coaching terms, we just spoke about the fact that there's a lot of what I described as controlled carnage in lessons where there is no practicing of patterns. There are just different situations created and the fencer has to react. And as such, in refereeing terms, I really believe very strongly that it's not an exercise in pattern recognition. There are no patterns. Actions don't exist. They exist in relation to each other. And I think it's really important to understand that refereeing philosophy to then take forward in coaching as the coaches please.
Fantastic. So creating problems and seeing how defenses adapt and react to those problems is, what they ultimately have to do within the bout, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And that's the really exciting thing. And I think, again, I can only really talk with my refereeing hat on. That is the excitement of it. It's not pattern recognition. That would be incredibly boring, in my view. And what I get a real buzz out of is when there are actions which surprise me, where timings appear where I think, this is exciting. And often the fencer on the piste is surprised as well to have pulled it off. But that is the real essence. So I can't speak for my Foylian colleague. Certainly of sabre fencing, it is this impulsive discovery of the new, really, that is the excitement and the real dynamic of sabre fencing. And yes, it's a form of problem solving, as Euan said, preemptively to think in time, but also certainly in sabre fencing in real time, feeling this tension between the two fences, feeling the distance, seeing if the moment is there. And that moment is different. And it's our job really as referees to feel that moment as much as see it. And that's why it's not pattern recognition.
Fantastic. I think you've both provided a really useful snapshot there. Been fantastic. If there's nothing else to add, we will.
Nothing more from me.
All good.
Draw that to a close. Euan, Sam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hope coaches have found that useful.